A man on crutches went over to his basement closet to check on a strange rustling sound, but when he opened the door, an armed intruder was waiting inside for him. What followed next was a brutal double murder, and this one simple thing got him caught. So on a freezing morning in Chicago, 64-year-old Michael Lefkow was alone in his basement home office. He was an attorney, but on this particular day, he was working from home because of a severe Achilles injury. He had a massive cast wrapped around his leg and could only get around by awkwardly leaning on crutches. As he sat at his desk, squirting through the legal files, the house was dead silent. His daughter had already caught the school bus, and his wife Joan had driven off to her job as a federal judge. The only other person home was Joan's 89-year-old mother, Donna, who was sleeping soundly upstairs. Now, Michael was deeply focused on his paperwork when he suddenly heard a strange sound. It was coming from a dark utility closet that he had just a few feet away from his desk. It was like a soft, distinct rustling noise, so he stopped going through his papers. He listened closely and he heard it again and again. Now, Michael figured it was probably just the building's furnace turning on or acting up, so he grabbed his crutches, stood up, and slowly hobbled over to the closet door. He reached out and pulled the door open. Inside of the pitch-black closet, someone was waiting. An intruder had been hiding silently in that closet for hours. The second the door swung open, the intruder panicked, and before Michael could even process what he was looking at, the person raised a handgun, aimed it straight at Michael's face, and pulled the trigger at point-blank range. Almost immediately, Michael collapsed to the floor, passing right there on the spot. The gunshot was so loud in their quiet house, it sounded almost like thunder. That upstairs, 89-year-old Donna, who could barely walk and required 2 canes just to move around, heard the deafening sound that made her panic. So she began slowly shuffling toward the basement stairs, calling out to Michael, Michael, is that you? What's going on? Downstairs in the basement, the intruder heard her voice echoing down the stairwell. Realizing someone else was in the house, he jumped out of the closet, ran down the narrow hallway, and met Donna right at the bottom of the steps. Without an ounce of hesitation, the intruder raised the firearm again and shot 89-year-old Donna, also point blank. As she lay bleeding out in the hallway, the killer put his gun away. He reached down, picked up her frail body, and dragged her across the floor into the office, leaving a massive trail of blood behind. He placed her right next to Michael. Then, just to be absolutely certain there were no survivors, the intruder pulled out his firearm one more time, stood over both of them, and fired one last round. Now, you would think a killer who just brutally ended 2 innocent people would run out of the house as fast as humanly possible, but this intruder didn't do that. Instead, his heart was racing and his nerves were through the roof. He walked right back into the closet where he was hiding and went straight toward the 12-pack of beer that the family had left on the floor. Unbelievably, the killer reached down, grabbed a bottle, cracked it open, and stood right there in the basement, casually drinking a beer as he stood staring at both Michael and Donna. Eventually, he realized he had totally messed up. The terrifying truth was Michael and Donna weren't even his targets. He had broken into this house to go after someone else entirely, but now that he had ended 2 innocent people, the realization of what he just did set in, and his nerves were through the roof that he decided to completely abandon who he was after altogether. He set his half-drink beer bottle down on the windowsill, grabbed some bleach and a sponge from the house, and tried to scrub the hallway floors as much as he could to hide as much evidence. But there was just too much of it. Eventually, he gave up and finally fled the house around 1:15 p.m. Later that evening, Judge Joan Lefkow, Michael's wife, arrived back home from work, walked into her home, called out for her family, and got no response. That's when she realized something was off. She walked down into the basement, saw a pool of blood, opened the office door, and witnessed the terrifying nightmare that occurred. When FBI agent Douglas Seacom arrived at the scene, the killer was already long gone, but as Seacom searched the basement, he noticed the utility closet. He saw the 12-pack of beer with exactly 1 bottle missing. Then he looked up and saw a single beer bottle sitting right there on the windowsill. Forensics immediately took that bottle. For days, a joint task force chased dead ends, screening high-profile criminals or extremists from the judge's past cases, but absolutely nothing fit. Then, just 9 days later, the lab results finally came back. The fingerprints and DNA of that beer bottle belonged to a certain man. That man's name was Bart Ross. Bart wasn't a known criminal or a gang member. He was actually a local cancer patient who had grown severely paranoid and detached from reality after losing part of his jaw during treatment. He had filed a huge medical malpractice lawsuit against his doctors, a lawsuit that was overseen by Judge Joan Lefkow, who ultimately dismissed it. Ross blamed her for completely ruining his life. He wanted revenge, so he put together a hit list of 25 doctors and judges, with Judge Joan right at the top at 4:30 a.m., he had snuck into the house through a basement window, planning to hide in the closet until the house was empty, then ambush the judge when she walked downstairs. But Michael and Donna had inadvertently found him first. Ross was so shaken by unaliving the wrong people that he drank one of the beers from the 12-pack, tried to clean the floor, and then fled. Ultimately, on March 9th, police in Wisconsin spotted Ross's van parked near Federal Courthouse. As officers closed in to arrest him, Ross pulled out his firearm and fatally unalived himself. Inside his van, detectives found a detailed, chilly note confessing to the entire double murder. If he hadn't stopped and grabbed that one single beer bottle, he might have gotten away with it.